All right, let's get this going. So, last week, I tried to do this stream. We ran into some technical issues. So, this week, hopefully, everything goes okay. It's kind of a trial run to work out the bugs. And so, hopefully, there's no issues, but let's get to it. So, you should see on the screen a chart of NVIDIA. So we're going to talk about NVIDIA today, obviously. We're going to go over a few different things. I'm going to talk real briefly about some macros for NVIDIA. We'll talk about some analysis, some technical analysis, and then we'll talk about a trade or two. And there's probably not going to be there's not a lot of people in this. It's real limited today. So, but if there's any questions or anything, then just ask them in the chat and I'll be taking a look. So, okay, so NVIDIA had earnings today, and the NVIDIA earnings were super bizarre. So they beat estimates, like they beat their record at financial metrics. They beat their earnings per share, like they obliterated all of the estimates, and the stock dropped today 5.46%. That's this little piece of the chart over here at the end. You can see this big red drop, like they just plummeted. So there's a lot of questions about that because NVIDIA has got these new deals with to make chips for a bunch of new companies, and they're for 2 quarters now they've been like sold out on all of their hardware products, and so we kind of are seeing maybe some people in the market saying, okay, well, the expectations now are super high after everybody's been pouring all this money into AI over the last year. And so now, it's like, well, probably a lot of these AI stocks are a little overvalued. And so this is just potentially par for the course. We've seen the same sort of thing with some other companies. Upstart beat earnings and they dropped. SMCI beat earnings and they didn't go anywhere. So that we may just end up seeing that. But like in terms of NVIDIA being, in terms of the company itself, the firms and the analysts all say that it's a strong buy. Their financials look incredible. So NVIDIA as a company is doing really well. So let's talk real briefly about the technical analysis. So I'm going to go here on the 1 day. This is the 1 day chart. So from left to right is a single day. It's just today. Today is NVIDIA trading. And if we zoom in, we can see these like peaks and these troughs. And the reason that I wanted to mention this here really is just because this is why day traders really like NVIDIA. So if we look at, this is called the VWAP, this big green thing that I just put in right here, and that's volume weighted average price. And so what this is really just a weighted average of the prices for just the day, for just today. And so what you can see in here is that NVIDIA tanks down, and there's this bottom green line, and that bottom green line is a 2 sigma standard deviation. And so for the price to fall 2 sigma away from where it was, statistically, it's like a massive drop. And so you see this sort of thing where it drops down and it comes out the bottom of this thing, and immediately it pops up and it goes back inside, and then it drops back down and it pops up, and you see this like rhythmic up and down, this like yo-yo effect of this thing coming out of the price, coming out of those bands and then popping back up, and then up here you see it approach the median price. But as a day trader, this is what you're looking for. Like if I were to like make a trade right here, right down at the bottom at this price 188.45, if I were to buy the stock right there and then sell it as soon as it was back in this band, that's a nice little profit, right? And I could have done that, 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5 times today. Here's a few more. And so as a day trader, you're looking for these peaks and these troughs. And so NVIDIA is a super fun stock to play with because it has so much of this volatility. But now we're gonna zoom out a little bit, and we're gonna take a look at the 1 hour chart. And this 1 hour chart, each one of these little candles is an hour. So this whole chart is, at the bottom here, we're looking from sometime in December all the way till today. And we're looking at this massive amount of NVIDIA, right? And so if we get back up to the front here, so this was earnings today. We have this linear regression, which shows that overall, over a period of time, NVIDIA actually was going up. But I want to activate here. We've got the 5-day, 10-day, and 20-day moving averages. And then I'm going to put in the 50, 100, and 200-day moving averages. So this is where the analysis actually in NVIDIA is really kind of interesting, because you can see here that, so this bottom one down here, this one at 174.45, this is the 200-day moving average. And if, generally speaking, if a stock is sitting above that line, we consider it bullish. Like we're like, okay, it's doing well, we expect it to go up. So this is also a resistance or a support level. And those levels are gonna tell us, like, well, at what values should we consider trading the stock, right? So, but there's this really interesting thing that happened with NVIDIA. If you go back a little ways, you can see we dropped down below all of these moving averages, all of these places where we're like, okay, well, it can find some support at this spot. Okay, it didn't find it, so at the next spot and at the next spot, and it dropped all the way down here. Back at the beginning of February. And then it came up and it crossed up through some of these, but especially this point right here in the middle, you can see that it's kind of like flirting with all of these averages, all these moving averages right here that are kind of like conglomerated in the same area. And then at one point it just shoots up, and who knows why, but then it stays up and it comes back down. And so if we go to present now, after the earnings report, we can see the same sort of thing. There's this middle white line in this group, and that's the 100-day moving average of the NVIDIA stock price. And you can see, like, it fell right through these three lines above. It fell right through that top white one, and now it's just kind of hanging out at this line right here. And so that's a pretty good indication that it's going to hold that line. Now, tomorrow we might see it drop through that one, and then we might be in a place, what they call a demand position, where this stock might drop all the way down to 174. And we'll talk about that in a minute when we talk about the trades. But this point right here, this is like kind of an interesting point, because it's hanging there. And so it's likely that, with the way that NVIDIA is set up as a company and how well they're doing, that it's probably going to find support here, and it's likely that it'll raise up. But so now we'll talk about a trade or two, and we're going to keep these values, the values of these lines in mind here. So if you were talking about day trading NVIDIA, you might go back to this VWAP that we had on the 1-day chart, and you might say, okay, well, I'm going to wait. Let me see. Let me turn some of these off so that view is a little more clear, and say, okay, I'm going to wait until it goes below this green, and I'm going to buy it at that point. The other option is that you can go back to this 1-hour chart, and you can take a look at these moving averages on a longer time scale, and you can say, okay, it's dropped below here. As long as tomorrow it doesn't continue dropping down, it's a good buy. Like, we're at this really nice little point here where if it goes up, its next resistance level is at about 186 something. And if it passes 186, then it's going to go up, or actually, I guess that's 185.60, and then 186, and then another 186. And if it passes through that, we're up to 188. And these guys are so packed in here, they're so close that we can consider using that for trades. So if you're looking at options, like if you want to look at an options trade, then you might say, okay, if you want to own NVIDIA, then as long as it goes up tomorrow, you can write a put at, around 185.17, 185.22. Maybe you write it for 184 or 183 and lose a little bit of premium to give yourself a buffer, right? But if it's going up from here, then we expect that it's going to try to kind of clear these points, right? It's going to take a lot to push it down below this 100-day moving average towards the 200. So if it drops below here and you really want to own it, you could say, well, I'll wait until it drops and I'll come down and I'll sell some puts at about 174. But if it raises, if it keeps going up, then we would expect that a sold put in a week or two would expire useless if it's above, if it's above this range. And so if you want to own it, then you can take a bigger premium and you can say, okay, well, it's going to pass this point. And maybe this first yellow line right there at 186.75. Maybe that's a good point. And you look and you can take a look at the options chart. In fact, I could even pull it up here and we could look at the premiums and you could say, okay, if I want to own it, then probably 186.75, or well, you would average that out. You'd say either 186 or 187, 187.50. I think it's probably 185 and 187.50 are what they're set at. And you would pick one of those expiring next week, and you would expect that as long as NVIDIA doesn't go crazy, that it's gonna assign. If you own NVIDIA and you want to get rid of it, then you can write a call right at this 185 value, expiring tomorrow if you want, or expiring a couple of weeks into the future. And as long as this goes down, then it'll sell. And you just need to make sure that you'll make a profit on the sell price. So those are a couple quick trades that you could consider for NVIDIA. These moving averages here are super powerful. You want to kind of consider, and I've given out the code for these. Like I can, if you want code, you can reach out and I can just send it to you. But these are, and they're custom, and that's why I mentioned that. But they're super powerful for considering resistance and support levels. It's super psychological. When people start trading these, there's like millions of traders and firms around the world, and they're looking at these same lines. And when they see a stock get to this certain line, that they buy it or they sell it. So there's a lot of power in those, and there's a whole bunch of other things that we can look at. One of the things that I enjoy looking at for doing the analysis is this Ichimoku cloud, and we won't talk about it today, but we can see here there's a lot going on. But this is a super interesting and analytical tool. So anyway, that's the analysis and some trade scenarios for NVIDIA. I'm gonna try to keep doing these. I'll pick a different stock each time, and we'll just kind of run through. If there's any feedback or interest in a particular stock or a particular indicator or a certain type of trade, then let me know and we can hash it out. So I think that's it. So thanks for attending, and take care.